She knew he would hurt her. He always did. But when his name lit up her phone, her breath caught, her fingers trembled, and she answered anyway. This was not love. It was something deeper, more dangerous. And the worst part? She mistook it for love. Because the pain felt just familiar enough to feel like home. This is the story no one tells you. Not about heartbreak, but about addiction. The kind of addiction that feels like obsession, that looks like romance. But underneath it all, it's a woman losing herself in a man she can't have and can't leave. So why does this happen? Why do women fall hardest for the men who care the least? And why does her body crave the very thing her mind knows is destroying her? What you are about to learn is not dating advice. It's emotional warfare, and once you see it, you will never see love the same way again. She told her friends it was love. That's what she believed. That's what she needed to believe. Because if it was not love, then what was it? Why else would she wait by her phone for hours, analyzing every word he did not say? Why else would she forgive him, again, for vanishing, for breaking promises, for pulling her close just to disappear? Why else would she dream about him at night, wake up anxious, then scroll through old texts like they were sacred relics? It felt like love, but it did not behave like love. It did not grow. It did not heal. It did not build. It burned. And that's the first red flag no one talks about. Love is not supposed to feel like withdrawal. But this did, over and over again. You see, this was not love at all. This was emotional addiction. And it's one of the most dangerous psychological traps a woman can fall into, because it wears the mask of romance, but it operates like a drug. She was not addicted to him. She was addicted to the feeling he triggered inside her. That dopamine spike when he randomly texted after days of silence. That adrenaline rush when she saw his name after thinking he was gone for good. That sinking low when he pulled away. And the false high of convincing herself this time would be different. This is the loop, the uncertainty, the hope, the pain, the slight reward. Repeat. Her nervous system was not responding to love. It was reacting to intermittent reinforcement, the same pattern used in casinos, toxic parenting, and addictive relationships. A psychological slot machine where the payout is emotional chaos. And here's the cruel twist. The more chaotic he made her feel, the more her body mistook it for passion. That's why so many women say, "I can't explain it. There was just something about him." What they are really saying is, he activated my nervous system in a way that felt like love, but was actually my trauma dressed up in chemistry. Real love brings peace. Addiction brings intensity. And in a world that glorifies intensity, women often confuse the two until it's too late. He was not safe. He was not stable. He did not offer consistency, kindness, or even real commitment. But he had something else, something more powerful. Emotional gravity. The wrong men, the ones women can't let go of, share a pattern. They're not the loudest or the most attractive. They're not the richest nor the most logical choice. But they carry something rare, something women feel before they understand. They make her feel seen, but only in fleeting moments. They show depth, but just enough to pull her in, never enough to stay grounded. They disappear, and when they return, it feels like oxygen. They leave her guessing, and the guessing becomes addictive. These men aren't loved for who they are. They're loved for what they activate in her, the chase, the high, the fantasy. Carl Jung would call this man the shadow lover, a symbol of raw, unconscious desire, the part of the feminine psyche that craves danger, chaos, and wild intensity. He's the forbidden archetype, the unintegrated male energy she never met in real life, until now. He is also the trickster, playful but deceptive, inconsistent yet charming. He never offers clarity, only contrast. He builds hope just to take it away. And finally, he is the chaotic masculine. He seduces with intensity, but cannot hold presence. He offers passion, but no peace. When he's there, he consumes her. When he's gone, he haunts her. But here's the most disturbing truth. She doesn't fall for him. She falls for the emotional mirror he holds up to her wounds. She sees herself through his unpredictability. She relives the neglect she once survived. She chases his love, hoping to rewrite an old story, to to win this time what she lost back then. And he doesn't even need to understand what he's doing, because many of these men aren't manipulators by intention. They're simply broken in ways that make them magnetic to the brokenness in others. His inconsistency keeps her nervous system on edge. His detachment makes her work for his affection. And the more unavailable he is, the more valuable he appears. Not because of who he is, but because of how hard she's trying to make him stay. In truth, the wrong man is just a mirror reflecting the parts of her that are still reaching for validation, still aching for proof she's lovable, still hoping that maybe this time she'll be enough to change him. But mirrors can't love you. They only show you what's already inside. She does not stay because she's weak. She stays because, on a level deeper than logic, this chaos feels like home. What most people call falling in love is, for her, falling into a pattern scripted long ago, not by the man in front of her, but by the emotional blueprint left behind by childhood wounds. When a child grows up receiving inconsistent love that comes and goes, love that must be earned, love that arrives only when they're perfect or pleasing, they don't learn to feel safe. They learn to feel addicted to approval, addicted to the chase, addicted to almost being enough. And then, years later, she meets someone who unconsciously replicates that same emotional rhythm. A man who pulls close, then disappears. Who compliments her one day and ignores her the next. Who makes her feel everything, then suddenly nothing. And her nervous system doesn't see him as a red flag. It sees him as familiar. Her mind says, this is dangerous. But her body says, this feels like love, because it remembers the highs. And it's desperate to avoid the lows. This is how trauma bonding begins. Every time he withdraws, she crashes. Every time he returns, she spikes. That unpredictable cycle, the emotional slot machine, releases dopamine, oxytocin, and cortisol in volatile waves. The exact same chemicals that power gambling addictions and drug cravings. She's not addicted to him. She's addicted to what her body is producing in response to him. The silence becomes louder than abuse, the tension more seductive than peace, and the brief moments of connection, no matter how toxic the overall relationship, feel like winning the lottery, but, like all addictions, the reward becomes rarer, and the effort to get it becomes more extreme. And here's the cruel irony. The more she invests, the more attached she becomes. Not because it's working, but because her pain now has sunk cost. She tells herself, maybe he's just misunderstood. Maybe if I love him better, he'll change. Maybe the problem is me. It's not her fault. She's not foolish. She's traumatized. This is why women don't leave when it makes sense. This is why logic does not break the addiction. Because this is not about love at all. It's about unresolved trauma searching for a different ending. Her subconscious believes, if I can get him to love me, I can finally prove I'm worthy of love. But what she does not realize is that she's already worthy. She's always been. And the fact that she's trying so hard to earn what should be freely given, that's the evidence of how deep the wound goes. Until that wound is seen, felt, and healed, she'll keep mistaking emotional chaos for connection. She'll keep calling her trauma love, and wondering why it always ends the same. It's easy to assume that smart women don't fall for the wrong men, that intelligence is armor against emotional chaos, that success, education, and self-awareness should protect her from heartbreak. But in reality, it's often the smartest, most high-achieving women who fall the hardest. Not because they are naive, but because they are trained to make sense of the senseless. They have been taught to solve problems, decode complexity, and outthink challenges. So, when a man begins to show inconsistency, distance, or emotional coldness, they don't retreat, they lean in. Instead of seeing his behavior as a warning, they see it as a puzzle, one they believe they can solve, if they just try hard enough. She tells herself, he's emotionally guarded, not incapable of love. If I stay patient, he'll open up. He's acting this way because of his trauma, and I understand that. This creates an illusion of control. She believes that if she responds with enough empathy, effort, or insight, she can fix the dysfunction. She intellectualizes the chaos instead of escaping it. She rationalizes the pain instead of confronting the truth. And every time she almost figures him out, every time he gives just a hint of vulnerability, her mind sees progress. while her soul continues to bleed. Why it traps her, deep or smart. Women are not addicted to the man himself. They're addicted to the idea that they can save him, that their love is powerful enough to change him, that if they just get it right, this time, it will work. But love is not a strategy, and chaos is not a code to crack. You don't heal someone by setting yourself on fire just to keep them warm. You don't grow by shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's brokenness. And sometimes, intelligence does not set you free. It just gives you better excuses to stay trapped. He never said he loved her, but the way he looked at her, it felt like he did. He never promised a future. But in those late-night conversations when the world was quiet and she let her guard down, he mirrored all the dreams she was too afraid to say out loud. She thought he saw her, but what he really did was reflect her back to herself. This is one of the most powerful unspoken strategies of the wrong man. Mirroring, not consciously, not maliciously, but with a natural, almost predatory instinct. He becomes a canvas, and whatever she's been starving for, safety, mystery, validation, emotional depth, he paints just enough of it on himself to feel like the answer, but only for a moment. In the beginning, he's curious, present. He asks questions no one else asks. He listens, or at least pretends to. He shows flashes of vulnerability that feel intimate, but they're not intimacy. They're hooks. These moments are rare, but powerful, because they're unpredictable. One day he texts her like she's the only woman in the world. The next, silence. One date feels like soul connection. The next, he's cold and unreadable. This is intermittent reinforcement, the same psychological principle that makes gambling addictive. You never know when the reward is coming, so your brain starts chasing it harder. She's not falling in love with him, she's falling in love with the emotional ghost he created, a phantom stitched together from fragmented attention, vague promises, and silent suggestions. The version of him that existed only in moments, but felt more real than anything else. This ghost is not just seductive, it's tailored. He picks up on what she wants, and gives her just enough of it to project the rest. She fills in the gaps with her own hopes. She builds a future out of fragments, and when he begins to withdraw, slowly, subtly, it does not make her leave. It makes her fight harder, because now it's not just about him, it's about proving the fantasy was real. What keeps her hooked is not his love. It's the absence of clarity, the open loops, the almost moments, the ache of what could be, if only he let it happen. And so, she stays. Not because of what he gives, but because of what she still hopes he might. She's not addicted to his presence. She's addicted to his emotional shadow, the idea of who he could become if only he chose to. But he won't, because that man never existed in the first place. She just needed to believe he did. She finally meets someone kind. He shows up on time. He listens. He remembers the little things. He texts back without delay. He does not play games, does not disappear, does not make her beg for crumbs. And yet, she feels nothing. There's no spark, no chaos, no gut-twisting butterflies, just silence, the kind she is not used to. So, she tells herself, he's nice, but something's missing. There's no chemistry. Maybe I'm just not ready. But that's not the truth. The truth is her nervous system does not know how to feel safe. So when it finally does, it misinterprets that calm as boredom. The wrong man creates emotional roller coasters, highs and lows that feel intense, addictive, alive. Every message is a hit. Every silence is withdrawal. It keeps her activated, alert, obsessed. But the right man, the one who brings stability and consistency, doesn't activate the trauma loop. He doesn't mimic her childhood pain. He doesn't challenge her sense of worth. He just shows up. And that should feel like love. But instead, it feels unfamiliar. And unfamiliar can feel wrong, even when it's right. This is the cruel side effect of emotional conditioning. When you've been trained to chase love through pain, peace feels empty. She thinks she misses the passion. But what she's really missing is the adrenaline, the chemical chaos that the wrong man triggered in her mind and body. And because she's used to equating that chaos with connection, anything outside of it feels lifeless. But love, real love, isn't supposed to feel like survival. It's not supposed to spike your cortisol or rob you of sleep. It's supposed to be quiet, present, safe, and until she heals the addiction to emotional instability, she will keep walking away from the very thing she says she wants, because it doesn't hurt enough to feel real. At some point, the truth begins to whisper, softly, painfully, persistently. It was never really about him, because if it were, she would have let go by now. She would have walked away the first time he broke her trust. She would have stopped loving him the moment he showed her he could not hold that love, but she did not. And it's not because he's special. It's because he awakened something deeper inside her, a wound that was already there. This is the part no one talks about, the part where his rejection starts to feel personal, as if healing depends on getting him to choose her. But she's not craving him. She's craving what his attention would mean if he gave it freely. Validation. Worth. Proof that she is finally enough. His love becomes the external solution to an internal question. Am I lovable? Am I worthy without earning it? If he chooses me, will I finally feel complete? Somewhere along the way, she begins to confuse his love with her identity. She can't tell where he ends and she begins. This is called identity fusion, when the desire to be chosen overrides the sense of self. She starts measuring her value by how he responds. If he texts back, she's wanted. If he disappears, she's worthless. If he smiles, she's beautiful. If he pulls away, she's broken. And this is the most dangerous part of emotional addiction. When your sense of self becomes tied to someone else's inconsistency, it's no longer about the relationship, it's about survival, psychological survival. Because if this man doesn't love her, then maybe no one ever will. There's also a deeper fantasy at play, the fantasy of being chosen by the one who doesn't choose anyone, the emotionally unavailable man, the loner, the broken hero. She thinks, if I'm the one who finally breaks through his walls, if I'm the woman he softens for, then I must be powerful. Then I must be special. But that's not love. That's ego. That's trauma wearing the mask of destiny. And even when she knows this, she holds on. Not because it's working, but because letting go would mean admitting he was never real, that everything she built, every hope, every plan, every sacrifice, was for someone who only existed in her imagination. This is the moment her healing begins. Not when he changes, not when he apologizes, but when she realizes she was never addicted to him. She was addicted to the version of herself she believed she could become, if only he loved her back. And that version does not live in him. It lives in her, waiting to be reclaimed without needing anyone's permission to exist. No one walks away from an emotional addiction overnight. You don't wake up one morning and suddenly stop missing him. You don't delete the texts and instantly delete the pain. Because this kind of addiction was not built on logic. It was built on emotional memory, fantasy, and identity. So escaping it requires a deeper process, a transformation. Like the phoenix, rising does not come before burning. You have to let the fire touch everything. You have to watch who you thought you were, and who you thought he was, turn to ash. There are 3 stages to this kind of escape. Each one must be lived. Each one must be honored. The first crack in the addiction begins when you finally see it for what it is. Not a love story, not a cosmic connection, not a once-in-a-lifetime bond, but a loop, a trap, a trauma pattern dressed up in hope. This is the moment the mirror shatters, the illusion falls, and you are left staring at something raw. He was never what I wanted. He was just what I was used to. Awareness hurts, but it's the only path out. You can't heal what you keep romanticizing. This part is the most misunderstood. You're not just grieving a breakup. You're grieving the version of your life you imagined with him. The maybe one day. The if only. The almost. This is where you must let go of the inner orphan. The part of you that thought if you were perfect enough, loving enough, patient enough, he would finally choose you. You're not just letting go of him. You're letting go of who you tried to become to keep him. And that takes courage. Once the illusion is gone and the grief is burned through, something new begins. You start to remember who you were before the ache, before the obsession, before you measured your worth through his eyes. This is the return of the self, not the fantasy self you created for him, but the real you underneath the longing. You look in the mirror and realize, I was never incomplete. I just believed I had to earn what should have always been mine: love, peace, wholeness. The phoenix does not rise to find someone else. She rises to remember that she was never ashes to begin with. Not all men trigger adrenaline. Some men bring oxygen. They don't leave her guessing. They don't weaponize silence. They don't create chaos and call it chemistry. Instead, they bring presence. Not presence that tries to impress, overpower, or control, but the kind that simply remains, still, solid, steady. Where the wrong man makes her heart race, the right man helps it slow down. Where the wrong man floods her with doubt, the right one clears the noise. Where the wrong man stirs anxiety, the right one feels like exhale. This is the grounded masculine, not defined by dominance or success, but by inner stillness. He is consistent, not because he's boring, but because he knows his value isn't in the chase, but in the way he holds space. He is non-reactive, not because he's cold, but because he's not governed by emotional storms. He listens more than he speaks, and when he speaks, it carries weight, because it is not driven by insecurity. He does not need to prove himself, and in his presence she does not feel like she has to either. She does not feel obsessed around him. She feels safe. She does not feel small or like she has to earn love. She feels seen. She does not feel like she's chasing a ghost. She feels like she's finally home, and that's why most women don't recognize him at first, because he does not activate the trauma loop. He breaks it. His love does not come with a rush. It comes with peace, and after everything she's survived, peace might be the most intoxicating thing of all. It took her a long time to understand, long after the calls stopped, long after the messages turned cold, long after she stopped checking his profile just to see if he still remembered her. She always thought she was addicted to him, his voice, his chaos, his silence, his approval. But one night, in the stillness that comes after too many broken pieces, she faced the truth. She was never truly addicted to him. She was addicted to the version of herself she believed she could finally become if he had just loved her the way she begged him to. She was not chasing his affection. She was chasing redemption. She thought, if I can make someone like him choose me, then maybe I'm no longer the girl who was left behind. Maybe I'm no longer the girl who wasn't enough. He was never the destination. He was the mirror, and what she was chained to was her own unhealed story, her own inner child, still waiting for someone unavailable to stay, still hoping to earn the love that should have been unconditional. Every unanswered text, every cold glance, every delayed reply wasn't just rejection. It was reactivation of a wound she thought she had buried. And the more she fought for his love, the deeper she buried herself inside that wound. Healing did not come with a loud revelation. There was no final fight, no grand closure, no apology, just silence. And then, clarity. She realized he was not the key to her becoming whole. He was the distraction from doing that work herself. And the moment she stopped trying to fix, chase, or decode him, she met someone far more important: herself. Not the wounded girl chasing love, not the fantasy self she tried to become for him, but the woman underneath it all, untouched, whole, complete. And in that quiet realization, the chains fell. Because true freedom does not come when he finally sees her worth. It comes when she does. He was never the answer. He was just the question that led her back to herself.